All right, let's dive into a big one, maybe the biggest one.
Oh.
Who is God?
Yeah, no small topic.
And we've got a really fascinating lens for this deep dive, the Urantia book,
Okay.
specifically focusing on paper 1, the Universal Father,
Right.
to try to unpack its unique and, I'll be honest, sometimes mind-boggling take on God.
Yeah, it's a dense text. It's dense, but it's intriguing.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think what we're going to try to do today is kind of bridge that gap between the almost incomprehensible vastness of God, as described in the Urantia book,
Yeah.
and that very human longing that we have to connect with something greater than ourselves on a personal level.
Right from the get-go, they throw around these terms like first source and center, which just screams epic scale.
Oh, absolutely.
But then they throw this curveball, at least it was a curveball for me when I first read it, where they talk about God having many names throughout the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that, beings on a distant planet looking at the same, I don't know, cosmic force and calling it something completely different based on their experiences and perceptions.
Right.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's a really great example of how the Urantia book really emphasizes that while God is this consistent, unified being, our limited perception shapes how we understand him.
Okay.
You know, it's like if we're trying to describe a magnificent, multifaceted jewel.
Okay.
You know, my description of that jewel is going to be very different based on what facet of that jewel I'm looking at.
So it's not that God is changing. It's that we only have the capacity to grasp these little fragments of who God is.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And here's the kicker. Despite this vastness, this incomprehensibility, the Urantia book is adamant that God is a person.
Okay.
Not a force, not an idea, a person.
See, that's when my brain starts to short circuit a little bit.
Sure.
Because how can something be infinite and also have a personality?
Right.
Those two ideas just feel fundamentally incompatible to me.
Yeah, and it's a very natural reaction to have, I think.
Okay.
In fact, you know, the text even describes beings with intelligence far beyond our own as being unable to fully grasp the concept of God's personality.
Really?
They call it a super personality, which, honestly, I don't know that that makes it any easier to understand.
No, it sounds cool.
It does. It has a good ring to it.
But it also sounds like, something straight out of a comic book,
Right.
But I kind of appreciate that even these incredibly advanced beings are admitting they don't have it all figured out. It makes me feel a little bit better about my own confusion.
And that's exactly the point that the Urantia book is trying to make, is that as humans, we are going to struggle with this.
Okay.
Our minds simply aren't equipped to grasp the infinite.
Okay.
But what's interesting is that the text warns against dismissing God's personality outright.
Because then where does that leave us? Like, are we left with just this random, meaningless universe?
Right.
Or maybe the idea that everything is God and we're all just these little pieces of this giant blob. Neither of those options seem particularly appealing.
No, and they kind of both strip us of our individuality and our purpose, which I think is something that the Urantia book places a lot of importance on.
Okay.
But here's the fascinating part. The text suggests that we can begin to understand God's personality not just through intellect, but through moral and spiritual growth by aligning ourselves with God's will.
So it's more about action than just belief?
I think so, yeah.
We have to actually live in a way that brings us closer to understanding God.
Yeah.
That's very different.
A different take,
than what I'm used to.
Sure.
And this brings us to maybe the most mind-blowing concept in the Urantia book, which is that a fragment of God literally resides within each and every one of us.
It's one of the most radical.
It's a lot.
It's radical, but it's also, I think, very hopeful. One of the hopeful ideas in the text.
Yeah.
And our bodies are even described as temples that are literally designed to house this divine presence.
I can already hear the listeners being like, hold on, did they just say we have a piece of God inside us?
Right.
That's a big claim, even for a text as bold as this one.
For sure.
So how does the Urantia book explain that? What does it mean to have a fragment of God living within us?
Well, this is where the concept of the thought adjuster comes in. In the Urantia book, the thought adjuster is a fragment of God's spirit that is sent to dwell within us and guide us on our spiritual journey.
So it's not about us possessing God or becoming these like mini deities ourselves.
No, never.
It's more like we've been given this like incredible gift, this direct line to the divine, and it's up to us to choose whether or not we actually want to tap into it.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
It's about a relationship.
Okay.
A partnership even, between our human selves and this divine spark within us.
That makes a lot more sense than us suddenly becoming all-powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be a lot to handle, I think.
And you know what? This actually ties back to what we were discussing earlier about experiencing God. I mean, what could be more direct, more experiential than having this fragment of the divine living within us?
Right. And that experience, that connection, is what the Urantia book sees as really crucial to understanding God's personality.
Okay.
It's less about dogma. It's more about personal transformation.
But I can also see how, for someone who doesn't subscribe to a specific religion or belief system, this might sound a bit out there.
Right.
Where's the hard evidence? Can you really blame someone for being skeptical when you're talking about God fragments and inner divinity?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the Urantia book acknowledges that it doesn't shy away from the fact that you can't scientifically prove God.
Right.
Instead, it points to personal experience as the ultimate validation.
Okay.
It's about recognizing something within yourself, a sense of wonder, a yearning for connection, a deep-seated intuition that resonates with the idea of a loving and personal God.
So it's less about convincing your brain and more about opening your heart to the possibility.
Exactly. The Urantia book suggests that the more we understand our own personalities, our capacity for love, compassion, and forgiveness, the closer we come to understanding God.
It's almost as if by fully embracing our humanity, we unlock a deeper understanding of the divine.
It's a beautiful way to put it.
But that still leaves us with the question of how we actually do that.
Right.
How do we cultivate that connection with the thought adjuster, with that divine spark within?
Well, according to the Urantia book, it starts with something surprisingly simple. Acknowledgement.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this acknowledgement. What does that look like in practice?
It's about recognizing that this divine presence, this thought adjuster, isn't something distant or abstract.
Okay.
It's a part of us, always present, always whispering guidance and offering companionship on our journeys.
So it's like having this silent partner, this inner compass that we often just forget to consult.
Right.
But if we can quiet the noise of the world, if we can really tune in, we can start to hear its subtle guidance.
Precisely, yeah.
Okay.
It's about creating space in our lives for contemplation, for reflection, for connecting with that inner wisdom.
Okay.
It could be through meditation,
Okay.
prayer, spending time in nature, whatever helps you quiet your mind.
Yeah.
And listen to that still, small voice within.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But how does that translate into actually doing something?
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to acknowledge the thought adjuster, to feel its presence, but how do we actively participate in that relationship? How do we make choices that align with its guidance?
Well, and the Urantia book emphasizes that this alignment isn't about following a rigid set of rules or checking off boxes on some cosmic to-do list. Remember, we talked about the names of God reflecting our limited viewpoint.
Right, right.
It's the same with this relationship.
So instead of approaching it like a rule book, maybe it's more like learning a new dance.
Oh, I like that.
We're figuring out the steps.
Yeah.
Finding our own rhythm, learning to move in harmony with this divine partner within us.
What a fantastic analogy.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what the Urantia book suggests. It's a cosmic dance.
Okay.
And just like any dance, it requires both partners to be present,
Okay.
responsive, and attuned to each other's movements.
Okay.
It's about surrendering to the music, trusting your instincts, and allowing yourself to be led.
Okay, I really love that.
Yeah.
But instead of, a waltz or a tango, this dance is about aligning our actions with the inherent goodness woven into the fabric of creation.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Remember, the text calls God the first source and center.
Right.
And it emphasizes that everything that flows from that source is inherently good.
Okay.
The dance, then, is about aligning ourselves with that inherent goodness.
Okay.
Expressing it in our own unique ways.
So it's not about denying our human experience, the joys and sorrows, the triumphs and failures, but rather finding that divine spark woven through it all.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Even in the midst of darkness or despair, God is present. guiding us towards growth and understanding.
That's a really powerful insight. And it speaks to, I think, the often paradoxical nature of the human experience.
Yeah.
We long for connection, yet we isolate ourselves.
Right.
We crave joy, yet we cling to pain. We seek purpose, yet we get lost in distractions.
Yeah, that's so true.
And through it all,
the
Urantia book suggests the thought adjuster is there.
Okay.
Patiently nudging us back towards wholeness, back towards that divine spark within.
I can already hear some of our listeners pushing back a bit on that idea.
Sure.
You know, if God is all-loving and all-powerful, why is there so much suffering in the world?
Right.
Why do bad things happen to good people?
Yeah.
It feels hard to reconcile those two things.
That's a question that has challenged theologians and philosophers for centuries.
Right.
And the Urantia book doesn't pretend to have all the answers.
Okay. However, it does offer, I think, a unique perspective.
Okay.
The text suggests that much of the suffering we experience stems from the free will God has granted us.
So it's not that God is causing our suffering
Right.
or sitting back and watching it happen.
Right.
It's more that we have been given the freedom to make choices.
Exactly.
Even if those choices sometimes lead us down difficult paths.
Exactly. The Urantia book doesn't shy away from the reality of pain and suffering in our world.
Okay.
In fact, it suggests that these experiences, while difficult, can be catalysts for profound growth and transformation.
Okay.
Think of it like a muscle.
Okay.
It grows stronger through resistance, through being pushed to its limits.
So instead of asking, why is this happening to me?
Right.
Maybe the more helpful question is, what is this experience teaching me?
Exactly.
How can I use it as an opportunity for growth?
That's the heart of it.
Okay.
It's about finding meaning and purpose, even in the midst of pain and uncertainty. And the Urantia book assures us that we don't go through these challenges alone.
Okay.
The thought adjuster is always with us, a constant source of strength, guidance, and unwavering love.
This is starting to feel less like a theological lecture and more like a love letter, wouldn't you say?
Right.
It's like God is saying, I'm here for you, I see you, I love you, and I'll walk with you through whatever life throws your way, even if it's tough.
What a beautiful way to put it. And that's precisely the message that the Urantia book emphasizes.
Okay.
It's about a love that transcends our limited human understanding.
A love that embraces our flaws, our mistakes, our moments of doubt and despair.
It's a love that never gives up on us, even when we give up on ourselves.
Right.
And this love is not just a distant concept, right? We have the potential to tap into it directly through that divine spark, that thought adjuster residing within each of us.
Absolutely.
Right. We talked about it conceptually,
Right.
but we haven't really dug into how that relationship actually works.
Right. Right.
How do we tap into this wellspring of love and guidance? How do we make it a tangible force in our lives?
Well, according to the Urantia book, it starts with something surprisingly simple. Paying attention.
Paying attention.
Yeah.
As in being more mindful of our thoughts, our actions, our interactions with the world around us.
You've got it. But it's more than that. It's about cultivating an awareness of the thought adjuster's presence.
Okay.
In every aspect of our lives.
So it's about recognizing those moments of intuition, those flashes of insight, those subtle nudges we often ignore.
Right.
And realizing that they might just be whispers from our divine companion.
That's precisely it.
Okay.
It's about learning to discern the thought adjuster's voice amidst the cacophony of our own internal dialogue.
Yay.
And the constant demands of the external world.
Okay.
And this awareness, this ongoing conversation with our divine partner, is what allows us to make choices that are in harmony with our highest selves.
Okay.
And with the grand cosmic symphony unfolding all around us.
This idea of aligning ourselves with God's will, of moving in harmony with the universe, it's starting to feel less like this distant spiritual concept.
Right.
And more like a blueprint for living a more meaningful, fulfilling life here and now.
I think that's a beautiful way to frame it.
Yeah.
Because that's what the Urantia book is ultimately about.
Okay.
Bridging that gap between the vastness of the cosmos and the intimacy of our own hearts.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we are not insignificant specks in an indifferent universe, but rather integral players in a grand cosmic drama.
Okay.
A drama in which each of us has a unique and essential role to play.
So how do we find that balance?
Right.
How do we stay grounded in the present moment, focus on our own personal growth, while also embracing this vastness of our cosmic potential? It feels like a lot to juggle.
That's where the Urantia book offers, I think, a very reassuring message. It reminds us that we don't have to carry the weight of the entire universe on our shoulders.
Okay, cool.
We're not expected to be perfect cosmic dancers, hitting every beat with flawless precision.
Okay, that's a relief to hear. I was starting to feel a bit overwhelmed, like I needed a cosmic instruction manual just to make a cup of coffee.
Right, but the Urantia book emphasizes that it's not about striving for some unattainable standard of perfection.
Okay.
It's about showing up with an open heart, a willingness to learn, and a genuine desire to connect with that divine presence within us.
So it's more about progress than perfection.
I think so.
Taking those small, everyday steps,
right,
guided by intuition, and a growing awareness of the thought adjuster's presence.
You've got it.
Okay.
It's about making choices that reflect that inherent goodness. The Urantia book talks about choices rooted in love, compassion, understanding, and trusting that those choices, however small they may seem, ripple outward, contributing to something much larger than ourselves.
That makes me think about all the ways that people find to connect with that divine spark.
Right.
Some people meditate, some people pray, some people find it in nature.
Absolutely.
Some people find it in acts of service. You know, it's like everyone's finding their own rhythm in this grand cosmic dance.
I love that visual. And, you know, the Urantia book actually emphasizes that there's no one right way to connect with God. It's about finding what resonates with your soul. What helps you hear the whispers of your thought adjuster amidst the noise of everyday life?
And maybe just even being open to the possibility that there is something more, some force orchestrating this incredible cosmic dance.
Sure.
That's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. Curiosity, a sense of wonder,
a
thirst for knowledge and experience.
Yeah.
These are all qualities the Urantia book champions.
Okay.
It's not about having all the answers, but about embracing the journey, the exploration, the ever-unfolding mystery of it all.
Because at the end of the day, we're all just dancers figuring out the steps, right?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Trusting our partners, listening to the music, and trying to enjoy the dance as best we can.
What a beautiful way to sum it up.
Yeah.
And remember, we're not dancing alone. We have the thought adjuster within, guiding our every step. We have each other. Sharing our experiences, offering support and encouragement.
Well, on that note, I think we've given our listeners plenty to ponder today.
Indeed we have.
So until next time,
keep
exploring, keep questioning, and keep dancing to the rhythm of the